I was raised around death, dirt, and silence. While other kids wore clean uniforms and waited for the school bus, I woke up before dawn, knife in hand, helping my dad slit the throats of cattle. The smell of fresh blood was my breakfast, and the heat from steaming intestines warmed my hands during cold Texas winters. My father, Hank, ran a small family-owned slaughterhouse, something he inherited from my grandpa, who had built it with his bare hands in the 1950s. It was old, the machinery rusted, and the wooden beams soaked with decades of blood. But for us, it was all we had. We lived in a rotting mobile home behind the plant. The windows were duct-taped shut. The floor creaked under every step. And when the generator failed, which was often, we had to eat dinner by candlelight, pretending it was fun. My younger brother Jake and I were the labor force. I knew how to skin a calf by age 9. By 10, I could slaughter a steer without flinching. My mom cried quietly in the kitchen when she thought no one was listening. My dad, he prayed. Every night on his knees in front of the gas stove, hands greasy from work, voice breaking. Lord, please, I just want to raise my boys with dignity. But God never answered. What little money we made went to feed, medicine, fuel, and government taxes. Whatever was left went into boxed mac and cheese and black coffee. There was no future, no peace, only routine and blood. One night my dad came home drunk. That never happened. He sat at the dinner table, stared at the empty plate and said, "I think God forgot about us." Those words carved themselves into my brain like a curse. I was 15, and from that moment on, something inside me began to rot. Jake was different, calm, faithful, quiet. He believed in doing the right thing no matter what. He said hard work and a clean heart were all a man needed. But me? I began to question everything. Why were the corrupt ones driving trucks worth more than our entire property? Why did pastors have private jets while my mum washed dishes with cold water? What kind of God allows this? Then came the dreams. I started seeing a man in a black suit, tall and still, standing in our empty cattle pens. He never spoke. Sometimes he smiled, sometimes he pointed. But I always woke up at the same time, 3:33 a.m. And every time, I'd hear buzzing flies and a low, hollow moan, like cattle dying slowly. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was just stress, but it wasn't. It was an invitation. One day the generator broke again. We lost half a ton of beef. It spoiled overnight, and the smell was unbearable. The bank cancelled our last emergency loan, and I watched my father fall to his knees behind the slaughterhouse, sobbing like a lost child, hands in the mud, aprons soaked in blood and rain. That was the day I broke. That night, I sat in the middle of the cattle yard, alone, under the cloudy sky. I looked up and whispered, "If God won't help me, then whoever's listening, come get me." As soon as the words left my mouth, a chill ran down my spine. The wind stopped. The night went still, and I felt watched. 3 days later, a trucker named Big Mike came by to pick up a few frozen cuts. He'd been coming around for years, but this time, he looked at me different. "You got that look, son," he said. "What look?" I asked. "The look of someone ready to stop suffering, the look of someone willing to pay." He handed me a folded note. Just a name, a number, and a red-inked symbol that looked like a pitchfork inside an eye. I kept that note for hours, staring at it like it was alive. And when the clock hit 3:33 a.m., I dialed the number. That call changed everything. The phone only rang once. A voice picked up immediately, deep, calm, smooth as bourbon. But what made my blood freeze was that the voice said my name before I even introduced myself. "Knew you'd call," he said. "You just needed to hit rock bottom first." I said nothing. He gave me directions. Not an address, just a location outside Amarillo, Texas. A dead zone, an abandoned lot between three deserted barns where old folks used to say witches held rituals during harvest moons. I waited 3 days, then drove there alone. The place was lifeless. Dusty air, the kind of silence that hums. At the center stood an old concrete structure, roof caved in, walls cracked, graffiti burned into the stone, but someone, or something, still used that place. There were burned black candles around the entrance, animal bones, feathers, and the stench of sulfur mixed with rotting meat. That's when I saw him. He looked like a businessman, tailored black suit, polished shoes, silver cufflinks, but there was something off. Too perfect, too still. His skin was pale like porcelain, and his eyes, dark brown with a golden ring, changed shade every time I blinked. "So you came," he said without moving his lips. The air got heavy. Breathing became a chore. I felt a buzzing in my teeth, like metal against metal. He stepped aside and motioned for me to enter. Inside, the floor was marked with symbols drawn in what I swear was dried blood. In the center, a single wooden chair and a black bottle sat on a stone altar. "Before we begin," he said, "I need to know something." "What? Do you have a partner in your business?" "Yeah, my brother Jake," he sighed. "Then we have a problem. You can't go further alone. The devil doesn't split souls." I didn't understand. "He wants all or nothing," the man added, "and what you're asking for, it doesn't belong only to you." It hit me like a hammer to the chest. After everything, the desperation, the dreams, the note, the call, I still couldn't go through with it. Not without Jake. I drove home in silence, heart pounding, thoughts racing. On the way, 3 crows followed my truck from telephone pole to telephone pole, and when I tried to turn on the radio, it played static, then drums, then whispers in some ancient language that made my skin crawl. Even after I turned the dial off, the whispers kept playing from inside the truck. Back home, I found Jake in the shed, sharpening a blade. He looked tired, pale, distant. "What happened?" I asked. "The bank called," he said. "They pulled our last line of credit. We have until the end of the month, or we lose everything." He said it without emotion, like he already knew this was the end. This was it, the opportunity, the door. I swallowed hard. "What if there was another way?" I asked. "What way?" "One without God." He dropped the blade, stared at me like I had just spat in our mother's grave. He didn't yell, didn't argue, just turned and walked out. At the door, he stopped and muttered, "Don't say that again. Don't even think it." But I did say it. And more than once, I told him everything about the man, the location, the symbol, the rules, the price. Jake didn't speak for a long time. His face stayed blank. But then he looked up, eyes wide, and said something I'll never forget. "I've been having the same dreams." Time stood still, no wind, no sound, just 2 brothers drowning in silence while somewhere something ancient smiled, because once the devil calls, he always calls for 2. The day came like any other, grey skies, no wind, thick air, but deep down I knew nothing would ever be the same again. 2 weeks had passed since Jake admitted the dreams. We didn't talk much. We worked in silence. He barely slept, and every night I could hear him pacing the hallway, whispering to himself. Then one night he walked into my room without knocking. He sat at the edge of the bed, eyes sunken, face pale, and in a voice that sounded like it had been torn from his soul, he said, "You said it only works if we both do it, right?" I nodded. "Then let's do it. Before I lose my nerve." I should have felt relief. I should have felt victory. But all I felt was dread. We drove back to the same cursed location outside Amarillo. The concrete shell, the dead soil, the twisted tree that looked like it had been struck by lightning from the inside out. But this time, the air was different, heavier, charged, like the world was holding its breath. He was already waiting for us. Same black suit, same calm eyes, same unreal stillness. But we weren't alone. Inside, there were candles, black, tall, flickering without wind, forming a circle around the ritual symbol on the floor. In the center, a crude wooden table with 2 cups filled with a dark, thick liquid. It smelled like old iron and burnt fat. Jake hesitated. His hands shook, his forehead dripped sweat, his lips trembled. "I don't want to do this," he whispered. The man smiled faintly. "You already did with the moment you showed up." He handed each of us a dagger, ancient-looking, silver but blackened by time. We were told to slice our index fingers and let 3 drops of blood fall onto the sigil on the floor. The smell of blood and candle wax filled my lungs. I could barely breathe. Jake was crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just tears, silent, endless, the kind of tears that don't come from the eyes, but from the soul. But still, he cut his finger, and his blood fell, and in that moment, he changed. The man smiled wider. He raised the 2 cups and handed one to each of us. "Drink. Let the pact be sealed through flesh." The liquid was cold, thick, tasted like rust, ash, and rotten leather. The moment it touched my throat, I felt something crawl down my spine. My stomach twisted, my heartbeat became a hammer in my ears, and when I opened my eyes again, we weren't alone anymore. The shadows on the walls were moving. The flickering candlelight formed faces. Whispers filled the room in a language older than time. I looked at Jake. He was staring at the wall, mouth open, face blank. I whispered his name. He didn't blink. Then, the man stepped between us. He crouched, close to our ears, and said, "It's done. You belong now. But remember, easy things come with hard payments." And then he vanished, gone, like smoke, no sound, no trace, just the smell of sulfur and something crawling on the ceiling. We didn't speak on the way home. Jake kept looking out the window, tears still falling. I couldn't feel my hands. That night, neither of us slept. I laid in bed, eyes wide, afraid to blink. I felt things in the room, watched the walls breathe, heard a voice whispering my name, again and again. Because the pact isn't just signed in blood, it carves itself into your soul. The next morning, everything felt different. The first thing I noticed was the smell, the usual stench of blood, spoiled meat, and grease that clung to our slaughterhouse like a curse was gone. The air was clean, the flies were gone, even the flickering lights in the processing room shined bright and steady. The old generator, which had been dead for months, suddenly came back to life. Full power. No noise. Noville. Then came the call from the bank. They said we'd received a processing adjustment on our business account, a large one, larger than anything we'd earned in years, enough to pay off 2 loans, fix the truck, and still have cash left to breathe. The manager even thanked us for our loyalty, said we should consider expanding. A few hours later, a local meat distributor stopped by with a partnership offer. The next day, a logistics company offered to lease us refrigerated trucks, low rates, no down payment. Then, a man in a Navy suit visited us personally, said he represented a state senator, wanted to congratulate us on growing American jobs, and promised us tax breaks if we opened a second plant. Jake sat through the meeting silent and stiff. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands never stopped shaking. I caught him several times whispering scripture under his breath. He still carried a Bible in his back pocket, still muttered prayers, still tried to resist, but he didn't say no, because everything was working. Within 3 months, we were in contracts with correctional facilities, hospitals, and school districts. The orders flooded in. We were hiring fast, too fast. We bought a ranch outside Austin, once owned by a controversial governor who died under mysterious circumstances. Massive estate, private lake, 2 helipads, a basement bunker. Jake didn't want it. "That house is cursed," he said. "Why?" "Because everyone who lived there ended up dead." I bought it anyway. We modernized the factory, installed high-tech automation. The trucks ran like clockwork. Inspections always passed. Regulations somehow waived. Then things got strange. The new night shift guards started quitting. They said they saw things. People standing still in hallways, shadows moving across security monitors. One guard said he heard mooing in the freezer, long, guttural, inhuman. I tried brushing it off, but then I woke up one night. In the pasture, covered in mud, shoes gone, phone dead. No memory of how I got there. Jake found me at sunrise. Didn't say a word, just helped me up, looked me in the eyes and whispered, "They're here, all the time, inside us." I didn't want to believe it, didn't want to think we'd invited something we couldn't control. But then, the deals got weirder. A tech startup offered to partner with us on behavioral tracking for livestock. A wellness company sent us organic meat marketing kits, even though they knew we weren't organic. A non-profit wired us a 6-figure donation to support our vision. And then came her, a woman with silver hair and golden skin. She visited the ranch unannounced. No car, no ID, said she worked for a foundation of global order. She smiled, sat at our dining table and said, "We believe in your potential. We'd like to invest." "In what exactly?" I asked. "In continuity. Just keep doing what you're doing." She left a black envelope. Inside, a signed check for $10 million. Jake didn't sleep that night. I didn't either. Because deep inside, I felt it. Something slithering in my chest, like the pact wasn't just in the blood anymore. It had moved into our bones, into our minds, into our reality, and nothing would ever be the same again. It happened faster than anyone expected. One day we were just 2 redneck brothers from rural Texas running a dying slaughterhouse. The next, we were being featured on the cover of American Business Monthly. Headline, "Slaughterhouse Kings, the meat titans of the new economy." Everyone wanted to know our secret, but no one asked the right questions. Rumors started flying. Some said we'd hit a jackpot lawsuit. Others whispered that we were laundering cartel money. Some even claimed we'd been adopted by an oil dynasty. But no one ever questioned it to our faces. They just smiled, shook our hands, and asked how they could get in. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Bankers wanted to optimize our wealth portfolio. Startups begged to collaborate. Politicians sent interns with envelopes full of invitations to private fundraisers. We were now untouchable. Jake, though, was different. He had changed. On the outside, he wore designer suits and $1,000 boots. But inside, he was a ghost. He started smoking cigars, dating a European woman who claimed to be a spiritual advisor, speaking in strange phrases like, "Energy obeys intention. Success requires soul alignment. The material follows the sacrifice." I walked in on him one night, talking to the mirror, not in English, not in Spanish, in something old, guttural, like Latin, but twisted. "Jake?" I whispered. He didn't flinch. "Just praying," he said calmly, without turning around. I left the room, and I didn't sleep that night. A few days later, Miss Jean, the old woman who had lived next to us when we were kids, stopped by the factory. She looked terrified. "That boy ain't your brother anymore," she said, voice shaking. I saw something move behind his eyes, a shadow, a serpent. 3 days later, Miss Jean's dog was found dead, strangled, eyes missing. The message was clear. Then came the dinner. We were invited to a private estate outside Houston. Massive, guarded, hidden. A-list politicians, megachurch pastors, country stars, all gathered for Philanthropy. As soon as we arrived, we were handed wine glasses filled with a liquid as dark as motor oil. Jake smiled, clinked glasses with a senator and said, "We finally made it." I didn't drink. Instead, I listened to the conversations. They weren't talking about stock prices or legislation. They were talking about population control, food manipulation, influencing elections through spiritual energy. One pastor, a man I used to watch on TV as a kid, turned to me and said, "Welcome, brother. You're among the chosen now." "Chosen for what?" I asked. "To keep the flock asleep. That's the real mission." I wanted to scream, but I stayed quiet. On the ride home, Jake lit a cigar and stared out the window. "You know what separates winners from losers?" he asked. "What?" "The winners let go of guilt. The losers keep praying." I didn't answer, because I knew right then Jake was gone, not dead, just hollow, a body with no soul, a puppet that smiled when the darkness pulled the strings. Every system has layers, and the deeper you go, the darker it gets. I used to think we were at the top, but after what happened next, I realized we were just delivery boys for the devil. It started with a letter, no return address, black envelope, sealed with wax, blood red. Inside was a single sheet. Embossed in gold was a strange symbol, a crown of thorns wrapped around 3 open eyes. Beneath it, handwritten in cursive, "Ordo Malum is watching. Welcome to the real power." My hands went ice cold. I showed it to Jake. He smiled. "Took them long enough." 2 days later, a matte black Escalade picked us up. No license plates, no driver ID. The man behind the wheel wore gloves and mirrored glasses. He didn't speak, not once. He drove us out of the city and into the woods, far from the main roads where GPS went blind and cell signals died. There, hidden behind trees and silence, was a compound. It looked like a forgotten church from the outside, but inside, it was something else entirely. Metal walls, security cameras, thick doors with fingerprint scanners. The air smelled like old stone and iron. We entered a grand chamber, dimly lit, shaped like a hexagon. There were 20 people seated in a circle, each wearing masks. Gold, silver, animal shapes, owls, serpents, bulls, lions, each one representing a pillar of the system. Beneath those masks were not strangers, but faces I recognized. A famous televangelist, a senator from California, a country music legend, a CEO of a pharmaceutical empire, a mega church pastor with 10 million followers on Instagram. And at the center of it all, serving drinks, was the man who first brought us into this, the one with the black suit. He wasn't a leader, he was a servant. That's when I realized, even he answers to something worse. They began chanting in a language I didn't understand. The lights flickered, the room vibrated. Then a voice echoed from the speakers above. "Swear allegiance or leave in pieces." They handed us parchments to sign, oaths written in blood. Jake didn't hesitate. I stalled. A woman in a mask shaped like a wolf leaned in and whispered, "You're already one of us. This is just formality." Once we signed, they opened a steel drawer and handed us folders, documents. They contained proof that shattered everything I thought I knew. Contracts between news networks and intelligence agencies, transcripts of celebrity confessions, ingredients lists for food additives designed to numb brain activity, financial records linking churches to private defense firms, video footage of rituals conducted beneath government buildings. I wanted to vomit. They didn't rule with violence. They ruled with silence, glamour, and screens. A masked man said, "Your task is simple. Distribute the signal." "What signal?" I asked. He smiled beneath the mask. "It's not a broadcast, it's a taste." They handed us a stainless steel box. Inside, dozens of vials filled with a greenish-black powder. "Add it to the beef. Just a pinch per batch," he said. What is it?" Connection. We left the compound at dawn, in the Escalade, silent. The next morning, we found an unexpected 7 million wired into our corporate account. No sender, no explanation. Our accountant, Mr. Lowry, flagged it. He called me that afternoon, nervous. "This is money laundering," he said, "and it's coming from somewhere high up." The next day, Mr. Lowry crashed into a tree. The autopsy said, fell asleep at the wheel. But when they found his body, his eyes were missing. That night I found a wooden object placed on my bed. It was the symbol again, the crown of thorns and 3 eyes, carved into the wood, dripping with dry blood, my blood. From that moment on, the symbol followed me, in reflections, on my walls, in my dreams. Every time I tried to forget, it would appear, and a whisper would return to my ear. "You asked for this. Now, you serve." Have you ever wondered where your food really comes from? Not the commercials, not the happy farm logos, the real source. Let me tell you something, and I don't care if you believe me or not, everything you consume is already cursed. After that night in the compound, we were told our company would now serve a new purpose, not just profits, distribution. We were selected to supply food to a network of federal correctional facilities, public schools, veterans hospitals, and even military bases. The contracts came quickly, no bids, no oversight, all approved in silence. Then came the vials, each one sealed, marked with that same cursed symbol. 3 eyes inside a circle of barbed thorns. Instructions were simple. A pinch per ton, blend well, no taste, no scent, no trace. I asked what it was. The answer, a binding agent. It keeps minds compliant, hearts empty, souls accessible. From that moment on, we were no longer meat processors. We were messengers of spiritual sedation. I saw things. Kids in cafeterias, staring blankly into space after eating, patients in hospitals becoming depressed, suicidal or aggressive for no reason, prisoners speaking in tongues and convulsing during mealtimes. Something was being planted, and it was growing, inside them. The food was labeled with bright words like natural, family-fed, and fortified. But those labels were lies. What was inside was engineered submission, and our job was to keep the poison moving. That's when the Ordo Malum gave us a new task: fund their people. They sent us lists, names, political candidates running for school boards, city councils, and state senates, mega-church pastors launching revivals, YouTubers who disguised mind control as spiritual coaching, TikTok influencers pushing mantras that looked like self-love but were actually satanic invocations. We were to fund them, quietly, generously, no questions. I tried to back out, just a little. That week, our plant manager, a father of 4, got locked inside the freezer overnight. They found his body frozen solid, his mouth open in terror. Security footage showed no one entering the room. Jake just shrugged and said, "The system disciplines its own." I started seeing patterns, the music our workers listened to, full of hidden chants, the food commercials during children's shows, loaded with occult symbology. The sermons preached in big churches, subtly removing the name of Jesus and replacing it with vague light and energy. I remember watching a live stream of a popular pastor, one with millions of views, saying, "You don't need a savior, you are your own salvation." And the crowd roared, cried, donated. That's when I realized the system was no longer hiding, it was celebrated. And if you think you're safe, because you pray, because you eat organic, because you fast or meditate or read scripture, I have bad news for you. They've already gotten in, through the packaging, through the screens, through the speakers. They don't need to break down your door. They're already in your kitchen. Hell doesn't knock, it delivers. Every empire fears only one thing: exposure. And the Ordo Malum was no different. Her name was Rachel DeLuca, independent journalist, half Italian, half Mexican, sharp mind, sharp tongue. She ran a podcast called Dead Light. A raw underground show that investigated real evil hiding in plain sight. She'd gone after mega churches, pharmaceutical executives, pyramid schemes disguised as spiritual retreats. She'd even outed a senator who attended ritualistic orgies disguised as fundraisers. When our company made the list of fastest-growing private meat suppliers in the country, Rachel noticed. She started pulling threads. She accessed old property records, saw our company bought federal land in cash, no trace of mortgage. She got aerial drone footage of a private airstrip on our new ranch. She obtained leaked contracts that tied us to an off-the-books food subsidy program connected to a wellness foundation that didn't legally exist. Then one day I got an anonymous email, no message, just 3 attachments. A spreadsheet showing wire transfers to shell corporations. Satellite images of our factory showing symbols burned into the roof, symbols we never authorized. And a blurry photo of Jake shaking hands with a masked man under a red pentagram. I showed it to Jake. He lit a cigarette and said calmly, "They're already handling it." "Who's handling what?" I asked. "The system doesn't tolerate leaks, especially not from nobodies with microphones." 2 days later, Rachel disappeared. Her mother went public, posted a desperate video on Facebook saying Rachel left that morning with her camera bag and never came back. Police opened a case. Local news picked it up. Then it was gone, scrubbed. Accounts were deleted, hashtags shadow banned. And then a video surfaced, grainy, unstable, uploaded anonymously on a site that no longer exists. It was Rachel, tied to a chair, bruised but alive. She was whispering, "If you're watching this," I didn't make it out. She looked straight into the camera, eyes glassy, face bruised. "They control your food, your leaders, your preachers, your influencers. They're all marked. Stop trusting the system, stop feeding it. It's not broken. It's designed to enslave." A voice behind the camera asked, "Who do they serve?" She swallowed hard, then said, "The Red Throne, the one who sits behind the veil, beneath every altar, the one who smiles when children pray and knows they'll grow into his." The screen went black. The video lasted 3 minutes. It disappeared in less than 6 hours. Every mirror upload was purged, every repost deleted. The people who shared it had their accounts terminated, their devices hacked, their homes visited. That night, I tried to sleep, but I kept hearing a knock. At 3:33 a.m., I didn't answer. But the next morning, Rachel's face was burned into my bathroom mirror, as if etched with a branding iron. Jake walked in, saw it, and smirked. "You still think we're victims?" "What the hell is happening?" I asked. He leaned in close. "We're not slaves, we're gatekeepers. We choose who gets in and who disappears." I've never felt colder in my life. Rachel wasn't the first, she won't be the last, but she was brave enough to try. And now? She's a warning. Because in this system, the truth doesn't set you free, it signs your death sentence. After Rachel disappeared, I broke. I couldn't breathe, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat without tasting ash in my mouth. I started seeing things that weren't there, or maybe they were. Shadows in the corners of my office, faces in the fog on my truck windshield, eyes watching me from the lake behind the ranch. 3 red lights hovering in the woods like a triangle that pulsed when I looked at it too long. One night I woke up gasping. My bedroom felt cold, unnaturally cold. I saw someone standing in the corner, tall, thin, no face, just watching. I tried to scream. My mouth wouldn't move. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I could only cry. Then it disappeared. Jake found me curled in a ball on the floor, covered in sweat. "You saw him," he said, lighting a cigar. "What? What was that?" I whispered. He blew smoke toward the ceiling and said, "That's the collector. He checks in from time to time." That same day, I drove 2 hours out to a small Baptist church in a forgotten Texas town. No screens, no lights, just wood, windows, and worn-out hymn books. I walked in and knelt at the altar like a child. I begged, cried, screamed in silence for God to pull me out of this. But when I tried to say Jesus out loud, my tongue froze, my jaw locked, my vision blurred, and the cross hanging above the altar fell on its own, shattering into 3 pieces right in front of me. The pastor rushed over, tried to pray over me, and collapsed. Right there, in front of everyone. Foaming at the mouth, eyes rolled back, mumbling something in Latin, or maybe something older. I ran. I didn't stop until I made it to an old Catholic church 30 miles away, asked for confession. The priest, Father Daniels, led me into a candlelit booth. I told him everything, every cursed deal, every vial, every chant, every soul we'd helped enslave. He listened in silence, then said, "You've done more than sin. You've opened a gate." He placed a crucifix in my hand and asked me to repeat after him. The moment I did, his nose started to bleed. His eyes turned black. He dropped to the floor, convulsing, screaming. It's already inside him. The seal, the mark. I ran again. This time, I went to a bridge, an old one, where people went to die quietly. I stood at the edge, looking down into the icy black water and whispered, "Maybe if I die, I'll be free." But just as I leaned forward, a voice whispered in my ear, calm, icy, right next to my skin. "Even death doesn't want you. You're ours now." I blacked out. Woke up back at the ranch, on the floor of the living room, covered in dirt. Cross burned into my palm. Jake was sitting across from me, sipping whiskey. "You really thought you could run?" he asked. "I want out, Jake. I want out." He stood, walked over and pulled me into an embrace, his voice soft, but terrifying. "There's no out. This isn't a job. It's a covenant. We didn't make a deal with men. We married the abyss." And then he smiled, not his smile, a thing's smile, using his face. That night, I felt something crawl under my skin while I slept, like wires wrapping around my bones, something sealing itself inside me. Permanent, living, breathing. When I woke up, I could feel it. Inside my heartbeat, inside my breath, inside my thoughts. I wasn't just owned, I was inhabited, because hell doesn't need to chain you. It whispers, it comforts, it becomes home. If you've listened this far, maybe you think this is just a horror story, just entertainment, just another crazy internet confession. But it's not. This isn't a story, it's a warning, a deathbed confession from a man who's still breathing, but already buried. I tried everything. I begged God. I tried to end it. I went to priests, to churches, to rivers, to the edge of my sanity. But you can't kill what's already consumed you. You can't escape a cage that has no bars, because this system, this hell, isn't a place. It's a program. It's in your news feed, in your kid's favorite song, in your pastor's inspirational sermon, in the cereal aisle of your local grocery store, in the wellness app that tracks your sleep, in the energy drink that gives you focus. The devil doesn't wear horns. He signs checks. He goes live on Instagram. He preaches balance and light while carving sigils behind the pulpit. Jake? He's a household name now, a philanthropist, a visionary. He writes books on leadership and unlocking your inner fire. He gives TED Talks. People cheer. They cry. They call him blessed. But I see it. The thing behind his eyes, the static in his voice when he talks too fast, the way his skin moves just a little too late when he smiles. He's not my brother anymore. He's a container, a suit tailored for whatever it is we let in that night. And me, I'm still here, watching, counting the days, writing this down not to free myself, but to warn you. Because you're next. You think you're safe because you read the Bible, because you go to church, because you delete bad apps and avoid tarot readers and crystals. But the devil doesn't care about your rules. He doesn't need you to sin. He just needs you distracted, comfortable, comfortably asleep. Because the moment you let your guard down, he whispers what you want most. And that's how it starts. Not with a deal, not with a demon, with a need, a wish, a prayer that no one answered. And then, the knock. Always at 3:33 a.m. So no, I'm not here to teach you how to fight him. I'm here to say, don't follow my path, don't search deeper, don't be curious. Curiosity is how the door opens. Don't listen to me. Don't share this. Don't even finish reading it. Run. Because the evil I'm talking about doesn't wait. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't forgive. And once it sees you, once it hears your name, it never forgets. And it never lets go. And remember, evil is never far. It always finds its way back.